Hi, everybody. Dave Walker here with the Beta SMB Institute. And, you know, in considerations, and frankly, in celebration of the really great small business assistance programs that we've seen emerge in 2020 in response to so many different crises, it was brought to my attention that there was this company that I'd actually never heard of before called CreditSafe, and that they had done some really extraordinary things in assistance to small businesses. So I've invited Dustin Luther, who's the CMO of CreditSafe. CreditSafe, I'll get it. Dustin, welcome.
Well, thank you so much. And I should say, I'm actually the CMO of CreditSafe USA. We do have a global CMO. That's not my role, but all good. I very much appreciate
I was trying to promote you.
It's all good. I just don't want to upset the powers that be.
No, I understand completely. So, you know, why don't you give us, I'm not going to presume that people know any better than I did of who CreditSafe actually is. Why don't you give us a kind of a background of yourself, and then a background of CreditSafe, and kind of give us an overview of what the products and services are that CreditSafe sells.
Sure thing. So in the business credit space, CreditSafe is one of the global leaders. We actually have people use more of our reports than any other player in the space. There's a couple of companies here in the US that are more established. We came out of Europe about 20 plus years ago and have really just taken storm there by doing our best to provide the most value for companies looking to understand the financial health of their partners, of their customers, of their, prospects, of those kinds of things. We have really good data on that so that people can help make, more informed decisions. So that's really the base of where the company comes out of. And then we've just added a ton of services over the years. So we've been in the US for about 8 years now, and are quickly growing. We've made, the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies list for many years, that kind of stuff. So, we're in there really making a name for ourselves. We help everything from a micro business who might want to just kind of start establishing their business credit so that they can go out and get financing or get bigger contracts or better terms with the suppliers who will be using our data to help make their contracting decisions, all the way to, mid-market, small companies, to enterprise companies who use our data to track everything from, how their supply chain is going to, grabbing big data sets, the global data companies that will use our data to help make, do analysis on international health of economies and that kind of thing. So data, our credit data is pretty ubiquitous at this point in terms of just, it's used all over the place.
Mm-hmm. And is it sold a la carte? Is it sold by subscription? How do you guys actually sell it?
So there's a couple of different, a little bit of it depends on the product suite that somebody wants. Like if they're grabbing an index file, we might call it for a country or a whole industry, that's a different model than if for what most smaller businesses will come in, and use ours. And for the smaller businesses, we tend to do an annual subscription where they'll come in, that we'll work with them, figure out what their needs are in terms of, are they looking for international data or just domestic data? Are they looking to get marketing data as well? Do they want to pull prospect lists? So, that kind of stuff. So once we kind of understand their needs, we'll put together an annual subscription, and then they'll be able to use, our data at will. Once somebody's in for the year, we don't end up, we don't have extra charges or anything like that. We kind of give them free access, and they come in and they just hit our door, and we have for our use case, part of our model is just encouraging companies to use as much data as they can. So if somebody says, I'm going to use 200 reports and end up using 250, like we don't charge them extra during the year. You get this essentially an unlimited model. But of course, the next year, if they're using, 20,000 reports and 20,000 reports instead of 200, we might end up, we'll renegotiate how it all works out. But our whole idea is just to be as friendly to the business community as we possibly can. We know we're in the US, we're one of the smaller players. So a lot of it is just, going in there, making a name and showing how we can provide more value than anyone else.
So, so obviously you guys have a pretty intimate connection with the small business customers that use your credit reports. What were you seeing as the pandemic really started to take hold, and frankly, the impact on small business really started to manifest in late February, early March? What were some of the things that you from your perch saw going on out there?
Well, having run a marketing team and I work really close with sales, of course, I'm like going to view things from that perspective. That's where it starts to hit early on, right? And
Hmm.
you saw, especially on the smaller companies, obvious cash flow issues where people were not wanting to sign contracts. They weren't sure how are things going to go, like, so it starts to hit our business. We knew it would real
Hmm.
fast on these smaller
Hmm.
contracts. So I would say that it just a certain amount of trepidation among people to even just continue to use new products and do that. I mean, that's the most obvious impact that we had. And it started right away. Like anytime there's uncertainty of your business future, companies do less work, right? Like they do
Hmm.
less contracting. The economy
Right.
starts to slow down, and that's one of the real values of business credit is that we can help kind of provide that sense of like, here's the credit worthy people. You can trust them to pay their invoices. You can like you work with these partners you can trust. So we know that like our own data helps companies kind of, how do I say, grease the wheels towards additional contracts. That's
Right.
really where we can be helpful. But early on, we definitely saw, just our own self as well as what we're hearing from customers and the whole community of just like, what's going to happen? That uncertainty that is scary for everybody, and we definitely saw that, and that's just going to slow contracting down, which is not good for not good for anybody.
Right. But you guys didn't. You guys. What was your response? I mean, you guys actually
Mhm.
then gathered around the table and basically said, "Okay, business is not looking particularly great." What was the action that you guys decided you were going to take?
Well, we're fortunate to be a bigger company that knew we could weather the short-term impact.
Hmm.
And for better or worse, because of that kind of role I mentioned that business credit plays in the overall economy of helping grease the wheels, we knew we would come out of the other end fine, like especially bigger
Hmm.
companies as they're wondering which of their, small, medium companies are going to have financial issues or having cash flow issues, they're going to be buying more of our data. It's going to be easier for us to get contracts, let's say 6 months down the line. We knew that in February already, in March, right? As things are
Hmm.
going back. So a little bit of it was a kind of wait, how do I say it? Let's prepare for the long-term future. And so what
Right.
we did is we came out with a free trial program that we had never done before. And we said, look, smaller businesses, we know you guys are struggling right now. We know the number of contracts we're going to sign is not going to be huge in March and April. And so instead, we just gave the data away for free. And we said, everybody gets 30 days free. You can pull up to 50 credit reports on other companies. We called it the Stay Safe program. We threw in
Hmm.
other extras. We made like any small company that wants to automate their building of their business credit, they can use this tool that we have that lets them claim their company on our site. They go into this little payment tab and they connect their accounting platform. And then that shares their trade with our database. We verify it. And if it's legit, we'll actually just add that for free to their database. And it's something that big companies do with us all the time. It's kind of the foundation in the US of how business credit reports are created, is the big
Hmm.
companies are sharing how they're working with all their other partners. And until we did this, I'm not aware of any business credit bureau who just made it free and automated for a small company to come in and start adding trade to their file so that they could build a more robust file, which is often critical to getting bigger contracts and to, if you're trying to get work with one of the bigger players in the space, they're pulling your business credit report. If it's empty, that's bad. That's like having an empty resume when you go to get a job. Like, so part of really showing that you can kind of earn a bigger contract is showing, look, I'm getting paid, I'm paying my bills, I have, I've got bigger contracts. So we've just, part of our response was just making this stuff free for the small business community, knowing that as the economy starts to rebuild again, that these people that we're bringing in will hopefully, a small portion of them will become customers.
So, the what was the initial impact? I mean, what was the uptake on it?
Really wonderful uptake. This ended up going so well that we thought it was going to be a 3-month program, and it's still going today, and we're very happy with it. People
Uh-huh.
can come in. It just, nothing sells the value of our data like companies coming in and kicking the
And actually
tires.
using it, right?
So that had, as I say, I'm not like some expert in what every other company does out there in our space, but I'm not aware of anyone else doing this, where you can come in, kick the tires for 30 days, really pull reports on your prospects, on your customers, not pay anything. And then you go, oh my gosh, next time I'm going to go to that business meeting before I sign that contract, before I have my sales guy really going deep in, let's pull their credit report and just see, are these guys going to be somebody we're going to want to contract with down the road? Or these guys look like they're having massive cash flow issues. Has their payments really slowed? They used to only pay 2 days late on average on, let's say, a 30-day terms, and now they're paying 60 days late. Like, that could be a concern if you're doing contracting with companies, and our data can help kind of answer those questions. So yeah, giving away for free for 30 days and making it so that some company who might not have bought reports on other companies in the past is now going, this is something I can't live without. Like, my company, we realize, oh, this helps us really, mitigate all the risk we have of companies who dealing with partners who might be having troubles, or maybe just resetting their contracts. Like, a big thing is sometimes you might go, okay, I can't just give these guys terms. I got to have them pay up front or something like that. Like, it just depends on your own business needs, but kind of understanding it doesn't mean you don't work with somebody. It might just mean you change how you work with somebody.
That's remarkable. And I mean, I think that the to me, the value of that data at this moment, especially, and in the last 6 months, where all of our assumptions about maybe the health of a supplier or the health of a partner may be completely upside down at this point, and we don't even know it. And if we could reach in and really kind of understand it, we'd probably be a heck of a lot better. So I applaud you guys for doing that. And is there education required, particularly for the small businesses that have never used it before? Do you have to educate them on how to use it, why you use it? Do you coach them on basically, please don't get this report and pick up the phone and yell at your supplier?
I mean, some of it, like the reports are genuinely designed to be pretty intuitive, right? Yeah. You come in and you're going to go, oh, they have a recommended credit limit of $5,000 or a recommended credit limit of $50,000. You look at a few reports, you like get a sense of that. Or, hey, we don't recommend you give them credit or something, right? Mm-hmm. You'll see that. You'll see their credit scores, they're color coded, and we have an international, we've standardized it for every company in the world. So we have, I believe our database right now is at 365 million companies globally from 190 countries. Somebody can go into our back end, pull their credit report, and we've standardized them all on similar metrics. So it's meant to be pretty easy. Like, a green means they're good to work with. A bright red, when you look at the score, you're going to go, okay, let me, like I say, it doesn't mean don't work with them. It just means use caution, right? That's often. Or like I say, if it's just empty, like, okay, this company, we don't have any data, that might mean that, it's like I said, like an empty resume, if you were looking at a personal side instead of the business, it means you need more information on these guys. So yeah, how do I say it? We have lots of ways of educating the smaller business community for things like how to set up monitoring, but it's mostly just kind of using our tools. They're not particularly that complicated, but maybe you work with 10 companies, you want to put them in, and you might decide if somebody drops from a B to a C, you want the alerts to be triggered. You might decide instead if their credit limit drops, you want to know, or if they start paying other suppliers really slow. So our monitoring tools are pretty sophisticated. They're actually included in that free tool as well. You can come in and start monitoring companies. But so, those are things that it's not that they require a ton of education. I think most business owners come in and kind of quickly look at the scores and go, oh yeah, I know how I would use this. But we do have it. We do webinars. We have lots of educational content to kind of get somebody from 0 to 60 as fast as we can.
Up to speed. So now that you've been doing this for 6 months, are there things that and you've been with CreditSafe for a while, so were there things that you going in that at this point you look back and go from what your pre-pandemic offering or approach was and look at them now and go, boy, I'm not going to do that anymore? Or to the opposite, are there things that you look back over the last 6 months and go, wow, were we right? And now more than ever, we should do more of this?
Like I said, we hadn't ever done this free trial at the scale that we're doing it, where it's really self-service. Like it doesn't require you to put a credit card to talk to a sales rep. We'd never really tried that before. And honestly, as I said, nobody in the industry did. It wasn't really what was done. So that's turned out to be very successful. I don't see us ever stopping that now. So that I would say is really good. Some of what I think of as well is the education that we're doing now. So when we, pre-pandemic, we had a pretty robust event team. We were going to lots of events every year. And then we realized, gosh, I got to keep these people busy on my team. They're not going to be traveling the country, going to different small business or credit events. And so we went 100% on webinars. And I challenged one of the guys on my team who manages our brand engagement team, really wonderful guy, says, I want you doing 2 webinars a week. Like, I want this to be so turnkey that we can do a lot. That has turned out to be wonderful for us. We actually are engaging with way more people. His team is engaging with way more customers, from micro businesses to enterprise, through webinars and through some of the digital marketing we're doing than we did going to live events. Like, I don't know that I would ever change that now. Now I'm going, okay, we were doing a lot of physical events. It's kind of what's standard in the industry. We will still do some in the future, but that team's focus is digital events now, as far into the future as I can see. It's just, we're able to do such better targeting. It really forced us to really think through like LinkedIn ad targeting by people, by titles, by interest, by, and really using our own database in a way that, quite honestly, we just weren't doing as well as we could have been. So if we're going to do an event, for example, a webinar that's on the changes in South America, we know all of our customers who are pulling South America reports, and it gives us a really good opportunity to target those guys and say, we have something we think you're going to find really valuable, and bring in the right people. And this is just a customer value add in this case, but that's worth it for us as a company, because it helps us when we go to renew and that kind of thing, right? Like we're really able to provide value in super targeted ways in digital that we weren't doing at physical events nearly as well.
Right. It's interesting that you're discovering the success with the free trial. And we've actually had some seminars and webinars of our own on the comparison of marketing-based leads and product-based leads, and that the marketing-based leads are the ones that you usually are used to historically working with, where you pull them from lists, you go out and do advertising, they come to your site, you capture their email address, that kind of thing. Where product-based leads really assume, hey, I'm going to get a much more engaged and qualified lead if I give them the product to use and to see what it does for them. And I think there's a lot of marketers in our small business space recognizing that small businesses especially really are responsive to that, because they really want to drive the car before they buy it. And even if it's just $5, even if it's just a really inexpensive trial, they still want that ability to just touch it, feel it, and see if they can use it. So kudos to you guys.
No, and everything you're saying that resonates. And even to the point where we know that our customers, if they stop using our product, if they're not logging in and pulling reports, they're the ones that don't renew. And we get really high renewal rates. So we have whole campaigns and content we've created, just like encouraging, like, don't stop using our data. Like, remember, if they do, because no matter where, some people kind of get in, they get busy, and you're like, you haven't pulled the report in 6 weeks. What's wrong? Like, how can we help you? And so our customer success teams, members that are on there, they're out constantly making sure our customers are using our data effectively, because we know that benefits everybody. And if they're not finding value, they're not finding value, they'll move on. But in general, it's rare that they don't find value. It's often they just almost they'll forget to use us or something, like if they get distracted. So a lot of that is just like, hey, how can we help you? Are we really providing the kind of service you need? Is there a way we can improve your monitoring you're doing or something like that? And we're finding the same thing with the free trial. That's what you reminded me of. Like, one of the early things we do is just helping people use our data, because if they're kicking the tires, they're way more likely to be customers. If they come in, they sign up for the free trial, they look at it once, they're not going to sign up in 30 days. You know what I mean? That we know that, right? So part of that is really having the education and the kind of prompts to say, did you know you can do this with our data? Did you know you can do that? And we find that sometimes what gets somebody to log back in and, start re-engaging with the value, the offer that we can provide.
So it sounds like the things that you've done over the last 6 months, provide a basis of things that you're going to continue. Is there anything along the way in the last 6 months that that you learned, and you and your product development team kind of sat down and said, if we did this in addition, I'm not asking you to give trade secrets here by any means, but if we were able to provide our small business customers this product or this service in addition to what we're doing, boy, that would really be pretty powerful.
You have me thinking, because I feel like we have those kind of conversations every day of like, what do we want to do?
No, that's fair.
But I'm also going, what is that like one thing? I'm not sure, but like some of it, the webinars have been a little bit of a game changer for us in the sense that some of what we knew we could provide to our customers, for example, is access to our network of experts through webinars and through articles they're writing and through some of that stuff, right? Because there's just a lot of questions customers have around, how do they improve collections? How do they, what should they be do? How do they make sure their cash flow, which is tight, how do they kind of improve that situation? Those kinds of things. So a lot of what we know we needed to do was just almost optimize our site, our emails, our various webinar stuff to just answer those basic questions better. And the more engagement we're getting with customers and with other experts, the more we're going, oh, you're right. Like I get that almost every day. Like we could do this better. I mean, our core product, which is just a credit report that somebody would go look at online, like we haven't updated that per se, right? Like that's pretty standard. But we knew we needed to like add one more metric. And we did this early in April, and it was our COVID-19 impact score. So what we did, typical credit scores in the US are based on trade payment data we get, an invoice, like did they pay their invoice on time and stuff. And so it's a little bit of a lagging indicator often, right? How a company's doing. I mean, we're up to date as anyone, but if somebody's starting to pay late, you're not going to know that till they actually pay late, right? And so if you're looking at this, how is my world going to be impacted by COVID-19? You kind of need some forward indicators of like, these are the industries that are starting to have problems. These are the states that are starting to have problems. These are, this is what we're seeing on these kind of companies or this niche, because it can be varied. Like airline companies were generally doing really bad, but charter flight companies were doing awesome, right? That kind of stuff. Like, so, being able to get down there, if you're mostly serving one industry that's doing great, you're probably going to be fine. So we created a COVID-19 impact score that was a complement to the credit score. It wasn't like a replacement by any means, but the idea is if you look at both, this company's credit health traditionally, if they've tend to have really good credit health and they're in a great industry, they're probably still going to want to work with. If they're tend to do really good credit scores, but they're in an industry that's really being hurt hard, you might want to have some extra caution, and vice versa. It can go both ways. So we actually added a COVID-19 impact score. We update it all the time. We have a data team that's still updating that score. And then we just gave it away for free to all of our customers. Even the prospects can come in and like give us their portfolio, whether it be like a supply chain, customers, prospect. We'll append our COVID-19 impact score to their database, and they can go, oh, these are the customers in my database that look like they're more likely to have trouble in the future. So it gives you a little sense of ways we've even improved the product.
No, I think that the COVID impact score, critical. I mean, you just can't presume because of their past credit that it really is a reflection of maybe the industry that they're in and the struggles of that industry. Fascinating. So I want you to be a little presumptuous and just as you are talking to your peers out in the business to small business space, based on what you've learned over the last 6 months, what would you recommend? What would your advice be to them as they're looking forward on how they're going to strategically approach the small business market in 2021 and beyond? What are some of the things that you've learned over the last 6 months that you would say, hey, pay attention to this. This is a real possibility.
Gosh, I almost go back to where we did start. I didn't mention this, but when we first started, the very first question that I went to all of our executives, we had a meeting, and it was just, how can we help? Right? Like it's how can you help customers, employees, everything. Like our executive team, I actually ended up putting a whole deck together of just how can we help, and that was what it was titled. And that was in March, I put that together. And so part of me doesn't want to be presumptuous for any other company, whether they're selling into the SMB market, into into the, enterprise market, like how you're going to be helpful. But, putting as a marketer, starting there is the best crisis management tool I know of, right? Like just, okay, there's a problem now, like how do we just be helpful? And if you're fortunate to be in a spot where CreditSafe is, where like we know we're going to be around, our cash flow, well, we might have some hiccups, but we're not in real danger of going bankrupt or anything like that, right? So because we're stable, we're in a better spot to help the community, right? Like, so then it really does become, okay, things are bad out there, but how do we help? That was crisis 101 in the beginning of it. But I think that logic just holds true always, right? Like if we're going forward, how do, any company can go, how do we help these guys out and really listen and go, okay, what do you need? And then, help them solve their problems. Like that's why I guess I'm being I feel like I'm at the 50,000 foot level here, but like, that's where you start, right? And no, everybody's solution is going to be different.
I think it's actually in the simplicity of it. I mean, TJ Fox, who's the president of Verizon Business, put out a document very, very early to the entire huge Verizon Business organization that was help first. And that was the mantra, help first. And I think it does unlock a huge amount. I think of Maria Pergolino from Active Campaign, who's a wonderful CMO, saying that what all of this brought about was a recognition of, stuff we should have been doing all along. And then somehow it had fallen out of our heads and our hearts, and suddenly we were drawn quickly back into, no, I got to help, and that's going to be really important for the business. So a great reflection, man. I really appreciate you doing this, and kudos again on the program. And I think that it unlocks a corner of services to small business that frankly I've never knew about and never really thought about. And so thanks for educating me on it. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I obviously love the opportunity to help tell our story. I'm super proud of what we're doing, and there's always more work to be done. But I love the hard work that our entire team at CreditSafe is doing just to be helpful. So thank you for letting us tell that story.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you doing this. Thanks very much.
Thank you.